All right, gentlemen, can you hear me? Let me know in a 5x5 on the chat. Can you guys hear me? 5x5. All right. Well, you guys have to bear with me. This is all new equipment. I'm used to using I'm not used to using Mac, and I'm managing two computers here. So, yeah. So anyway, we're not going to be talking about any sensitive subjects. So we don't really have to. We're not going to alt tech tonight. This is all just a Halloween show, and for those of you that don't know out there, I have a passion for the paranormal. I have been, I don't know, I shouldn't say I've done formal investigations because I didn't. In my youth, roughly from like 22 on to maybe after I got divorced, from time to time, if I was by a haunted location or whatever, I would go check it out. And first of all, when people tell you the shit's haunted, blah, 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 do I believe them? People lie. So I have to go there myself. And usually, I don't know, I could walk into an area and I get the vibe that something's going on. Sometimes it could be, pretty egregious, but most of the time it's pretty tame. And on these investigations, actually they're not investigations. So let's say they're witnessings. I went there to witness stuff. Very few things happened. So I don't know. I would like to actually do formal investigations with basically the 50-50 mindset, where I'm half skeptical and half believing, and then when I get there on the ground, I'll be able to determine exactly what's going on. Now, I got a bunch of shit on the board here behind me, so if something isn't spelled correctly or whatever, I don't care. You know the drill. I have dyslexia. I don't give a shit. So it is what it is. You can call me idiot, whatever you want. I don't care. All right. So behind me, you're going to see to the far, or to this part of the board here. From the research I've done, roughly 85% of the people who experience hauntings, low-level shit. Okay, we're talking like, slamming doors that can't be explained by wind, footsteps, your dog alerts to, shit around the house, or maybe a cat or whatever. You hear muttering voices, meaning if you ever been in an area where somebody's talking, but they're far enough away that you can't really understand what they're saying, but you know somebody's speaking. That's what I mean by muttering. And then you have your shadows, dreams, and of course we have orbs. Now, there's all kinds of orbs out there. What they are, who knows? I mean, I have my opinion. I think a lot of those orbs are disembodied souls that are still zipping around here for whatever reason, and it is what it is. I've taken pictures of orbs. I tried to find the MP4 I had on one of my computers where I did it's like a 3-minute recording in front of the Christmas tree before my kids came down, and I didn't notice it at the time. When I looked back at it, you can actually see orbs moving through the Christmas tree, and then there was another one that was going around the top for no apparent reason. Now, this is my mother's Christmas tree. It's the same Christmas tree I've had virtually for my entire life. I've set it up and taken it down countless times. I pretty much know how the whole thing works, and for people to say, well, maybe it's Christmas lights. All right, yeah, maybe. I doubt it. I know the difference between the stationary Christmas light and one that moves around. I'm just saying. And I thought that was pretty creepy. And I'll tell you some stories in regards to the house I grew up in, because that house, for the most part, was low level. There was a couple of incidents that were higher up on the list, but they were isolated. So it wasn't like we're living in, I don't know, a hell house or something. All right. Now, next you go up here to the mid-level hauntings. Okay, so this is 85% of the time it's low-level horse shit. 10% of the time, medium. It's a mid-level haunting. Now, are there any studies to all this? I don't think so. I'm just going from the amount of stuff I've viewed throughout my life and in regards to what was what. And I've put this together of my own accord, about 4 or 5 years back. Now, the mid-level hauntings starts off with apparitions. Now, what I mean by apparitions, they're either transparent or they look like real human beings, and you look at them, you do like the double take or whatever. They're there for anywhere from 2 seconds and beyond, or they're moving from point A to point B. That's a mid-level haunting. Next is clear voices. You actually hear the words in real time. Now, a lot of people will call this EVPs. If you need to find them on a tape recorder, more than likely they're down here. Okay, I'm talking about clear voices, spoken in the open, no explanation, right there. Okay. Now, another one that's when you hear voices that takes it up one more notch on the list is when the voices mimic you or a loved one. All right, because there's all kinds of situations out there where people hear their wives and their kids calling them, and those people aren't even home, or they're in a different room, but they hear somebody calling from the upstairs. Okay, it sounds like there's only one reason for that, and that, in my opinion, of course, this is all subjective, is it doesn't have your best interest at heart. All right, so I would say if you hear voices and they sound like members of your family and it's not them, it goes up here. Okay, next, moving items out of view. All right, now typically, and I've experienced this, especially in the house my mother owned when I went to high school and stuff. There were times when literally I would set something down on the counter like this. I'm the only one home. I walk away for a few minutes, come back, gone. All right. Now, most of the times it reappears, but not where you left it. And sometimes in places that you don't mess around with. Like, for instance, I've had stuff, like when I first bought the house in Berkeley, the one I live in now, or my mother lives in now, I literally had about a half a dozen instances where I had the tools, I'm working on stuff, I set the tools down, and they're gone. I find them, looking around, but like 2 or 3 times, I found the tool that I had set down in the toolbox in the basement. Now, do I think something crazy was going on there? Yes, I do. I bought that house mainly because it's all I could get. It was during the 2008 downturn, and I had very limited resources because, I was living in the street, or no, it was before I lived in the street, actually. And I had very limited resources, and I needed to get the house. And I knew it was haunted. It just wasn't, it wasn't high enough on my radar to cause me to go nuts. Now, some people are like, oh, well, maybe you have OCD or whatever, and your memory is all fucked. Yeah, my memory is jacked. It's not that jacked. All right. Now, it's gotten a lot better since I got wounded in Iraq, but I call this the brain. And quite literally, if I have to remember something, I write it in here. Jokes, comedy situations, whatever. So, some people could say, your memory's just effed up. Okay, a skeptic can say that. I was there. I know the deal. All right. Now, I've never had this here, knocking on doors and doorbell stuff. All right, you can go on YouTube, and there's all kinds of videos out there where the front doorbell rings, they go answer it or look out there, and then there's knocking on the back door or back window, and it moves around the house. Now, that's mid-level haunting, in my opinion. And then you have, water turning on and off on its own. Annoying horse shit like that. All right, now, more than likely, if you're experiencing this kind of stuff, you are at a intelligent haunting. All right, now, typically there's intelligent hauntings, and then you have residual hauntings. Theory behind that is a residual haunting is a psychic imprint of something that took place in the past that that plays over and over again. Sometimes it could be on birthdays, anniversaries of certain events. Other times, it's unpredictable. All right. So that's what I mean by a residual. Intelligent haunting, there's an intelligence there that's fucking with you. All right, it's not residual. Like a lot of poltergeist activity, in my opinion, are intelligent hauntings. Now, there's a lot of theories out there that, that it's intelligent, but it's still residual. It's either one or the other, in my opinion. Okay, then you have bad and good. Now, I'd say malevolent and benevolent. I just say bad or good. All right. And I got a couple stories here that I'm going to go through. Now, when I go through these stories, you're going to see that, I write a lot of the stuff down. Most of the time, if it's mine, it's just like one sentence. All right, there's a couple stories in here that are from other individuals, and what I need to do is I read it a few times. Then I write it down by hand, and that really goes a long way to being able to tell the story in a non-robotic kind of way. And for whatever reason, when I write stuff down after I've read it, I retain it a lot better. All right, so we got that, and the good ghosts. For instance, I had a platoon sergeant when I was in the National Guard, and he purchased just a small bungalow before he got married, and he lived there for like 4 years. Only him and his dog. And it was about 3 or 4 times a week for the first 6 months after he bought the house. He would come back from work, lights would be on, TV would be on, or radio, and it carried on for quite some time until he actually, yelled out when he's in the house. He's like, "Hey, I own this house now. Could you quit fucking with shit and just leave me alone? I don't care if you're here, but, it is what it is. I have no problem sharing it with you. I just don't want to have the craziness." And then after he did that, it went from happening, 3 or 4 times a week to like once or twice a month. And then that was no big deal. All right, so we got that. Next, we have the highest level, 5% or less fall into this category. All right, now some of the things that take place during high-level hauntings are, it's called an apport. That's where objects appear and disappear, mostly appear. Typically, if objects are being, left around the house that you can't explain, or like for instance, I had one of my soldiers back in the day used to collect baseball cards, and he had, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was one of the World Series teams. It escapes me. I don't follow sports. And he had The entire team, he was missing 2 cards. And sure as shit, he found 1 card in his house. All right. And it was worth like a $300 card. And the other one, literally, he was, what was it? A garage sale. And, you know, he was not even thinking about the card. And he was just going up, looking at stuff, and he felt on his shoulder. He turned and looked. And on the top of a box full of other, like, hockey cards, football, was that baseball card that he wanted. It was his last one for that lineup. And it was right there. All right. Of course, he got it. It was like $10. It wasn't in the greatest shape, but it finished the whole collection for that World Series. It was a baseball team. World Series, not all right. And then that was it. And when he told me that, I was like, holy shit, that's pretty cool. But here's another thing. Touching. All right. Now, typically, if you're in a haunted environment and you get scratched or your hair gets pulled, you get touched, what have you, that's a top-tier haunting right there. And you better watch the fuck out. All right. Now, another one here is moving items while you're looking at them. All right. I don't know how it works on the other side. And one day we're all going to find out. But there's a big difference between something moving when you're not looking at it and another when you're looking right at it and you're watching shit move around. All right, that's you're going way beyond infrasound, way beyond everything else. All right. Now the next one is there are certain phenomena out there where there are supernatural forces which spontaneously catch shit on fire. That is exceptionally dangerous. All right. Now, typically, the top level stuff does not have your best interests at heart, and more often than not, they're intelligent and they're bad. Boom, right there. All right. Now we come to possession and / domination. All right. We all know what that is. That's where, another spirit jumps into your meat suit and takes over, the captain chair and quite literally does whatever. Who knows? All right. Now, in the middle here, I'm talking about the places that I've, come across that are haunted. Some are more than others. Like, for instance, houses, I put them at the top because the generation of today don't seem to understand that most of the time before 1975-ish, people died at home all the time. All right. And if you get an old house, like the house that I own my mother lives in Berkeley, it's 109 years old, 110 years old. So you figure you go from 1975 to today, it's 50 years-ish. But before that, it's a half a century of people living in that house. All right? And look, back in the day, people died all of the goddamn time. No antibiotics, no cure for a lot of diseases, vaccination for a lot of the nuisance diseases that we have today were terminal back in the day. So that's why, most houses, if they're older, built before 1975, there's a very good chance you got some craziness going on in there. In fact, the house that we're in right now, the Lair, it's haunted by, I believe, a child, and I believe there's one adult. There's no noises or sounds for the most part. But it's the feeling I get. I've had the problem with the back door opening and stuff, and it just is what it is. All right. Next, commercial buildings. All right. Now, the newer ones, not so much. But I'm talking about the commercial buildings that you find in, like, rural America that are along Main Street. because back in the day, those were owned by individuals, and they were making a living doing whatever they're doing, and they burned in. Maybe they like working there. They liked having a business, and they stick around. All right. I teach kickboxing at Smash Hit Kickboxing downtown Pontiac, and that building has got I would say a moderate level of activity. I've heard the footsteps, doors open and close, a little bit of murmuring here and there. And a couple of times I've come into the gym. I have the key, the only one there, and I know no one's been there all day. I walk in and there's one or two punching bags moving. Can't explain it. Do I let it, creep me out? No, it just is what it is. Most of the time, they're just normal people who no longer have bodies. All right? And they have no more power over you than they did when they were alive. So if you can keep that mindset going in the back of your head, it dials the fear down, from like a 10 to like a 2 or 3. 2 or 3 is manageable. All right, next we have cemeteries. Now, in hindsight, I should really move this down further on the list because the grand scheme of things, most cemeteries are not crazy haunted. All right. It just is what it is. You're dead. You died in the hospital. You died at home, and then they bury you in the cemetery. So, the vacation or the vacating point where you left your meat suit is you didn't die in the cemetery. This is what it is. Though there are a lot of good videos out there of, cemetery stuff. Case in point, there's a big cemetery right next to Berkeley, Michigan. It runs right along the side of Woodward between 13 and 12 Mile Road. And this happened twice. After 10 o'clock, and this is years ago. Both times I was coming from a bar, and then the other time I was driving to my girlfriend's house. And there was a neon sign, like literally right there at the fence line. It's maybe 10 feet back. And I'm driving, doing my thing, and I see a dude standing on the other side of the fence to the side of the sign. And I remember I saw him, and I had to hit the brakes. 3 seconds later, I looked over. I saw him again. I did this, and then he was gone. There's no fucking way that dude did anything in that amount of time. Literally, I was like, gone. All right. Second time, coming back there, I could not tell if it was the same person. The second time, he was standing off to the side of the sign, and I could see right through him. Right through that guy. That was creepy. But other than that, most of the time, in all the cemeteries I've been in, which I don't like going in many, and I usually go in there when I only have to throw somebody in the dirt, it's been pretty peaceful for the most part. Hospitals. Crazy haunted. All right. Not virtually, most of the people who die today will die in the hospital. And sometimes they get released from the hospital to go to hospice and die at home. That's becoming a lot more popular in the past 15 years. But most hospitals who've been around, 15 years or more, all kinds of crazy stuff going on in there. Next is funeral homes. All right, now, it is my opinion, and I've been to quite a few funeral homes in my time, that the individuals that choose to remain in and around the funeral homes, there was a service held there, and for whatever reason, they just got trapped there or what have you. Another one is this. I'm a firm believer that after you die, you can check out your own fucking funeral. And I think that's what's going on, in my opinion. All right. Next, schools, especially the lower, what is it? The grade school, K through like 5th grade. Some of the older schools that go K through 8th grade. The lower ones are usually significantly more haunted than like high schools and what have you. Why that is, I don't know. But it's incredibly sad when a child dies. And for the most part, children really don't know how the world is. They really only know how the world was when they were in school. And perhaps that's where they find some solace and they like to hang out there. I don't know. Next, areas with a lot of death or had a lot of death take place, i.e. Civil War battlegrounds. Stupid haunted. And it doesn't matter day or night, full moon, no moon. It is fucking crazy. All right, I've reviewed, I don't know, 200 or 300 EVPs from a lot of the Civil War battlefields. And, they seem like they're intelligent. I don't know what's going on there. But one that really creeped me out the most, and I think this somewhere in Pennsylvania, I don't remember the battlefield, but it's now like a state park. And there was 5 or 6 Civil War cannons off to the side of the road, and they're in their car filming down the road, and you literally see 2 sentries, walking around the goddamn cannons. And that really wigged me out. And I have a couple stories we're going to go over in regards to servicemen and who have encountered a lot of haunted stuff. All right, cars and objects, very, very rare. All right, typically, cars and objects are haunted. It's usually a bad thing. I really haven't come across a lot of stories in regards to items like dolls and little bikes and stuff that are haunted. And it's a good spirit. It's usually means you no good. And last, military bases. A lot of guys die in the service, commit suicide in the service. I've seen quite a few. I've talked to, when I was homeless, I talked to a lot of other homeless guys who were former, they were veterans, former military. And all they wanted to do was go back to the time when they're in the service because life was so much simpler for them. They had 3 hots and a cot, and they had to do their job, and that was it. And then they were stuck living in the street now because circumstances and vagina and things. But, and I could see, how after you pass, they like that part of their life, and they cycle back and, bring it back into the forefront. So anyway, wow, I blabbered on for a good 32 minutes going over that. All right, so let's get into some of the stories here. Now, I'm expecting Sandman to call in, or I'll call him roughly now. Let's see if we can get him on. So bear with me. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see. Okay. All right, so he's not ready yet. All right, I'm just checking on my Skype. Not a big deal. Okay, let me just send him a quick message. Okay. Telling stories. Now, intro is complete. All righty. Now, I got a lot of requests for me to retell a couple of the ones I Went over a couple of years ago. So I'll start off with those. All right. First, we're going to talk about the weird fishing trip. All right. Now, if you guys have watched my content, I covered this 2 or 3 years ago, and it's in regards to an impromptu fishing trip that I went on to the Finger Lakes when I was stationed in New York. Now, this is, I think, 8 years ago. 8, 9 years, somewhere in that frame. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is. And, all right. So here we have the Finger Lakes. All right. This is in New York State. Now, I found the Finger Lake National Forest. Now, I had basically my last 12 years in the military, I was riding a desk. And I was starting to feel my age. And I'm out of curiosity, I guess. I'm like, you know what? I should probably just, throw on the pack and go see what I could do. And I decided to do that. And then I'm like, well, if I'm going to do that, might as well do something constructive. So I decided I was going to go fishing. I went and got my fishing license. I had the fishing, rod and tackle box, and had my rucksack on my back, and a 12-gauge shotgun. It was a Mossberg 500 or Maverick 500 riot shotgun. And I had, I want to say maybe 15, 20 rounds of ammunition, double-aught buckshot, most of it, and a couple of slugs. So anyway, I come here, and I've decided that I'm going to drive and park, and then walk through Finger Lake National Forest and then go fishing. All right, now, you can't really see it on this map right here, but there are tributaries that, that are pretty significant that cross into the lake here. And I had parked one of the, there's little pull-in little alcove parking areas along the road, and I don't remember exactly which one. And I pulled in there, parked, took out my stuff, and by the time I got there, it was probably 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon. And I walked in. It took me, I don't know, I would say almost 2 hours, 3 hours. It was almost 8 o'clock. It was starting to get a little dark. And I figured, I'm not going to really do a lot of scouting. I'm by myself. Walking around the woods by yourself with a pack on your back, if you don't know what you're doing, can be extremely hazardous for your health. And it even gets worse once visibility's gone. So I decided, fuck it. I was going to hang out, put up a fire, with a heat-reflecting wall, mainly for light and to get the mosquitoes off me. And then I put up a poncho and a mosquito bar insect net. And I heated up was a can of chunky sirloin burger stew. Ate that for dinner. And I was cleaning it up. I put the dishes aside. And I remember it was like somebody flipped a switch. All right. And the switch flips. No animals. No insect sounds at all. Nothing. So, and then I got the horrible feeling like I was being watched. Well, what are you going to do? It's already dark. I'm going to take all my shit and walk out of there and expose myself to all kinds of craziness because I didn't know if it was an animal or people or something else. But, if they were going to come and get me, it would be after I emptied a 12-gauge, 8 rounds of 12-gauge into whatever it is. So I retrieved the shotgun, and I remember just a few feet away from the fire was this large, I believe it was an oak tree. And when I say large, it's literally, was wider than this bar here. And I remember I put my back to the tree, and then I had the fire over here, so I could literally see what was going on, and no one's going to come up behind me and bushwhack my ass. And I stayed there all night. Literally from like 9, 10 o'clock at night, I stood there and pulled guard until 7:30 in the morning when the sun started coming up, and then I started hearing the animals, and I laid down for a couple hours of rack, because let's face it, grunts don't really need to sleep like civilians do. It's like a superpower we get from getting fucked with 24/7, 365 in a war zone. Don't recommend it. And, I got up, took down my stuff, and I decided, fuck it, I'm going fishing. So I walked down the tributary, and I remember I crossed over this, I believe it was this road here. And there's a lot of civilian houses along the lake here. And there was a tributary that came in that was not on private property. And I was fishing not directly in the lake, but I was back a piece. All right? Because I was trying to catch trout. I would settle for some smallmouth, largemouth bass. Not really a fan of crappie or bluegill. And I was fishing maybe hour and a half, I think. Same thing happens. Silence. Okay, so now it is daylight. Same crazy shit is happening to me. Feeling like I'm being watched. The animals and birds and the insects, whatever. It was like literally somebody brought a curtain down that soaked up all of the sound. At which point, I pulled in my line, disassembled the fishing rod, and I walked my fucking ass out of there. And I didn't look back. And later on, I came across David Paulitis 411, missing 411. And apparently, a lot of people around this area mysteriously disappear, never to be found or seen again. All right. That really put a kink in my noodle. Here, hang on, let's see what we got here. On Skype, stand by. So, do you guys like the stories? Is this interesting? Give me some feedback in the comments. And let's see what we got here. Okay. All right. Let me call him. Let's see if we can get him on. Trying to call him in here. All right. Can't get him yet? All right. All right. I apologize for the delays, gentlemen. Wow, you guys are tearing up the chat room. Oh, here we go. He's calling me now. What up?
Hello?
You there? Sandman, is that you? Hello?
Can you hear me? Put me something in the chat.
Okay. Let me do yes.
Okay, so you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Nope.
So something's going on with my speakers. It's saying there's a problem with your speakers. Connect to another speaker. Okay, let's see here. Audio video settings. Let's take a look. Okay, my mic is working, so that's good.
Yeah.
Dismiss.
All right. Let's see. I changed. No settings.
That's weird.
All right. That is weird. All right. So,
sorry guys, I updated my computer a few days ago. I did one of those Microsoft updates, and now it's doing all kinds of wonderful things. So certain things aren't working for whatever reason.
yeah, I did lots of those and got fucked. I just typed that in there. Let's see what we got here. All right, so let me just say I'll call him back. In a few. All righty, let's get on with the show here. I'll call him back here in a few minutes, see if he can work out his settings. But hey, this is 2022. What are you going to do? All right, so that is the weird fishing trip story. And I've told that one before, and apparently it went over quite well. And it is what it is. So that's the weird fishing trip story at the Finger Lakes. Next one that was requested quite heavily is the Abu Ghraib ghost child. All right, now let's give you just a little images of exactly what Abu Ghraib looked like. All right. This is Abu Ghraib prison images. And this is the conditions I and my men lived in roughly for a year. I mean, what is it? Anywhere from 1.2 to 2.5 million people over a 20-year period went into the prison, and 700, 800,000 people missing unaccounted for. There was all kinds of fucking wholesale killing going on there. And there was some areas of the prison that were literally boarded off with plywood because there was so much fucking gore that they didn't even bother cleaning it. They just sealed it off, and we're not going in there. All right? Where my bunk was on the second floor used to be where a tank of acid was, and quite literally, they dipped people in there until they fucking died. Now, this particular area of Abu Ghraib prison was for the political prisoners. Out behind the barracks was a wood chipper in the desert. So we all know what was going on there. Every room had a hook in the ceiling. Rumor was the rooms would be packed with people, and when the guards would leave for the day, they would leave a rope in there so people could hang themselves. I mean, that's the kind of crazy, horrible shit that went on there. So yes, that place was stupid haunted. The entire time I was there, the hair on the back of my neck never went down. I had a low-grade nausea. It was horrific. It was terrible. All right, so I had first platoon living on the second floor, and I was to the back of the bay in the old shower room on my bunk, because I was, a master sergeant, and I raided my own space. Now, towards the back of the bay, at the other end, there was a small doorway. You walk through the door, you turn right, and you go down basically a flight and a half of stairs to the courtyard. And we would keep that illuminated at night with chem lights. Because at the bottom, stand by. You got me? Hello? Hello? I can hear you.
It says my speakers are muted now. What the fuck is going on?
I can hear you.
Hold on. Let me call you back. This is just ridiculous.
All right.
Oh, you can hear me. I know, but my speakers are muted, so I can't hear you.
Okay. Cool.
So, but I'm not muting the speakers. I'm not doing anything.
Let's say Murphy.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Murphy. All right. Call me.
Let me just load a web page. See, like even the web page.
Apocalyptic battles.
Okay, websites are loading. So that's telling me that it's not muted. So that's weird.
It is weird. All right.
I just can't.
I gotta jump off here. All right. It is what it is. Sorry about that. All right. We're talking about the Abu Ghraib ghost child. All right. Now, this particular story, it started about a week or... Hang on. Call ended. All right. So they moved in there. It was about 2 weeks before the first sighting happened. And it was always at night. And the first time, it was like 2 in the morning, somewhere after 2 in the morning. I'm laying in my bunk. All of the lights come on, and I start hearing everyone yelling, "There's a kid in here! There's a kid in here!" And it, literally everyone was like looking under their bunks, moving stuff around, looking for a child. I come out, and I'm like, what the fuck? Well, one of my soldiers was literally walking down the stairs to go use the pisser. God damn. Stand by. You there?
Okay. It says it's unmuted.
Can you
unmute for incoming calls. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fucking shit.
All right, let's scrap it. No problem.
I'm going to call again.
All right, hang on. I'll just scrap it for tonight. All right, so apparently when I went to talk to the soldier, he was walking down the stairs, and as plain as day, a 10-year-old child, a boy, literally walked up the stairs past him. He felt it. He felt him brush against him. All right. He took a few seconds, looked back, didn't see anything. So he runs up the stairs, turns on the light. All right. I don't know what's going on. So he turned on the... Hello?
Okay, I can hear you now, so that's good.
You got me now?
Yeah, I'm just probably going to hear feedback, so let me switch over to the other thing. Can you hear me okay now? Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
You couldn't hear me when I switched over, right?
I could hear you. I could hear you every single time.
Okay, let me just, because right now you're on speakers, I don't want to create feedback. Or you're not getting any feedback on your side, right?
No.
Okay, but let me just go to my headphones so I can hear you. Hold on a sec.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? No.
All right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear you through my speakers. For whatever reason, it's not allowing me to send the audio to my the microphone, for whatever reason. So, but if we're not getting any feedback, then we're good to go.
It sounds pretty good.
No, it's not the sound quality. It's it's just if we're not getting feedback or not, right? So anyway.
All right, so like I'm in the middle of the story here, so just let me finish you here.
No worries.
So, and this happened like 2 or 3 other times. And the last time it happened, it was another soldier, and I knew this guy. He's a solid dude. I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to embarrass anyone or get anyone in any trouble. When I talked to him the next morning, and he quite literally was like, it looked like a flesh and bone child. It literally walked right past me up the stairs. I saw it turn the corner. I was literally 10 seconds or less behind it, turned on the lights, and there was fuck all in the room. All right, so when that happened that last time, I remember it's like 3 something in the morning. Again, lights come on. There's a kid in here. Everyone's going nuts. All right, now, nobody would say what it was except me. Because I remember I walk out in the bay, the lights are right here, and I look across the whole bay to the guy whose bunk is literally right by the doorway, with the stairs come up. And I'm looking right at him, and I'm like, it's a ghost! Go to sleep! And I turn the lights off, and the look on that kid's face is like, just as the lights turned off, he was done. He was done. And the next day, he's like, can I move my bunk? I don't want to be by this door anymore. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. That one really uber creeped me out right there. It was unbelievable. All right, that's the Abu Ghraib story. All right, so you there, Sandman?
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going?
Doing good. Sorry you got here late, but better late than never.
Well, actually, it might work out in our favor because on the drive back home, I was thinking there's paranormal stories, and then you have the paranormal stories that are kind of no one has ever had before. You know what I mean? Like, people have had ghost stories and alien stories and precognitive stories, but when you have paranormal stories that you can't explain and you have no frame of reference, I think that would be the true definition of a paranormal story.
Okay, I can jive with that.
So I think like what you were mentioning was a ghost story in prison in Iraq. Is that correct?
Yeah, Abu Ghraib prison. It was seen by at least 6 of my soldiers. Usually, it was walking up the stairs to the upper floor, and it's hard to say that it's imaginary when you have 6 different dudes see it, and one guy I literally trust with my life. So that one is. I personally did not see it, and I'm glad I didn't. I don't need any more of that nightmare fuel. I've got enough nightmares from that place. I'm good.
So besides that one, did you share any other ones?
Yeah.
Have you had any other ones that you would say would be unexplainable even for the unexplained?
Yeah, I'll tell it to you right now.
Sure.
Okay. Again, Abu Ghraib prison. It's about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I just got out of a battalion bub briefing, which is battle update briefing, because I had 3 platoons scattered to the 4 winds around Baghdad. And when you look, I'll show it right here. Like right here, see this picture I have my mouse on right here? Okay, that one there. And you can see all the way down there, there's a long hallway. Hang on, somebody's fucking calling me. I'll call her back. All right, so you can see that long hallway right there. Well, it's lit with iridescent lights all the way down.
Did you say incandescent?
What it was? The long tube lights. What are they called? I don't know.
Fluorescent.
Fluorescent. That's it. It's a really harsh light. And the lights are on 24/7, 365 in that lower hallway. I come around the corner. There's nobody there. As plain as day. A jet black silhouette of a person. I don't know if it's a man or woman, because I remember seeing the legs do this. Walked across the hallway underneath the lights and into an alcove to the right. It was maybe 50 yards from me. It didn't take me, literally it took me almost no time to get there. I walked down there. I look into the alcove. There is no other way a human could leave, because there were 3 doors there. All of them were locked. I couldn't explain it. That one really freaked me out there. So, is that a definition of something that defies explanation?
Well, it defies explanation, but people have seen ghost ghosts, right? So that you get tons of experiences of people seeing these ghosts or apparitions or whatever you want to call them.
Uh-huh.
But I'm talking about, we take paranormal experiences and we classify them in things. We say this is a ghost experience, and this is an alien UFO experience, and this is a precognitive experience. So we classify them. But when you have something that's an outlier for even the weird, you don't know how to classify. You talk to people about it and they're like, I've never heard of that before. You go on the internet and you can't find any stories of people having any similar experiences.
Do you have any stories like that, or?
I've got a few. It just depends on okay, so I've got some that are connected with dreams and entities in dreams. I've had dreams where I've been able to kind of hijack another person's consciousness in the past and be in that person and then gain information that would be valid for the present. I also have information with regards to like tungsten incandescent light bulbs. So when you were saying light, harsh light, you're probably describing fluorescent that's around 4,000 degrees Kelvin.
Yeah.
Tungsten incandescent is usually 2,800 degrees Kelvin.
That's information I don't know.
Go ahead.
That's information I have no idea what. I didn't even know that. Thank you.
Yeah. So different types of light have different color temperatures. So what I've noticed, it took me literally 10 to 15 years and maybe 50 to 100 experiences before I finally noticed that precognitive dreams for me were connected directly to places in the future where there were two things present, or three in some cases. The color temperature was 3,200 degrees Kelvin, which is about the tungsten, the orange light you'd see on a street light.
Okay.
So the light would have to be nearby, and it would have to be that frequency or that color temperature. Then also there would have to be a highly emotional experience. So it would have to be either really positively charged or negatively charged.
Okay.
And then the third thing is it usually was near a body of water. It could be an ocean, it could be a river, it could be a pond, it could be something, but it would normally be maybe 50, 100 yards away.
Yep.
At most. So again, it's hard to kind of predict the future because you have to have this genuine emotional experience. You have to be near this color of light temperature, and you have to be near body water. So it would happen normally when I would travel. So I would see the places I would travel to before I went to them. And, either a good experience or bad experience. So, it's a combination of both. But what I noticed in the future, I would actually be sending myself the message, telling myself, like staring at the orange light above. And I'm like, why am I staring at the light in all these dreams? It's because I had figured out that that's how that was a critical element in figuring out how precognition works. And I was trying to tell my past self by just staring at the light. I was just passing myself a message.
All right, what you're explaining there is
Sorry?
What you're explaining there is it's called a hijack point, and people who actually do lucid dreaming, when they go into the dream in the beginnings, they don't really know that they are dreaming, and then they have the hijack point where they hijack their dream and then they control it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few lucid dreams. I haven't had enough, but if you could lucid dream and you could have precognition, then technically you could tell yourself in the lucid dream, I want to dream of the future, and then technically you could get that information passed down to you.
Well, I would like to try that because I'm kicking myself for not buying Bitcoin for the past 10 goddamn years.
Look, it's crazy because everything I do, it's almost like I'm like 5 minutes too late for everything. Mm-hmm. So I bought Bitcoin. It was at 15, 16,000, and here we are sitting at 20, and my average is around 17. So I'm all up a little bit, but I was a lot higher, and you were a lot higher, and we were doing great. But don't worry, it's going to come back in a year and a half. I think everything kind of happens for a reason. If you don't go through the hardships in your life, then you don't grow, you don't evolve. People talk about karma, like say good karma is, good luck. And it's like, it's not. Good karma means that you're learning lessons, right? So we both learned the lesson, we should have bought Bitcoin. And the worst part was people were telling us to buy it, and we were like just writing them off.
Yep. Absolutely correct. That's actually a pretty good one. You talked about like a precognition kind of thing.
Yeah, so like I'll give you an example, but it gets more complicated than that because I've had experiences. Like I was shooting a bar mitzvah. I was at the Air Canada Center. Well, back then it was called the ACC Air Canada Center, and the night before I dreamt that I was there, and one of these kids, there like she fell and hurt her head, and so I was in the dream. I was like, I'm gonna make sure that tomorrow I do nothing for this kid so nothing bad happens. And then I talked to a couple entities in the dream and they said, you can't stop this. It's going to happen. Right. So I've had dreams where I could see the future and then I would go in and I would alter the future and change the course of events. But this time they were telling me you can't change the course of events. And so I went out of my way to change the course of events every single way possible. Right. Like the kids were, I was taking pictures of them on the rafters. They were at the top. I was worried they were going to fall off the balcony. Right. So I was paranoid the whole time. So I was watching myself. And towards the end of the night, the photographer I was working with, I was doing video. She was doing photography. She gives me her camera and says, can you take a few photos of the kids? And I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. Sure. And so I took the camera and I was aiming it down. I was standing up on one of these metal stands. And the lens of the camera just fell right off the camera and hit this kid whack in the head, right? So that was the thing I couldn't control. And then I was freaked out. I thought I was going to get sued and all this bad stuff was going to happen. And so she was crying, screaming. She left. She ran upstairs to the hotel area. And, I left and I was like, oh, shit, this is going to be trouble. And then the photographer called. She's like, you won't believe what happened. I go, I'm being sued? And she's like, no, the father, he broke his hip and he's in the hospital right now. And so so that experience got superseded by something that was far more painful and problematic. So whatever these entities are and however the timelines work, they meddle with things in such a way that like they go left and you think you're going right. And, they fake you out back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have something similar.
Sure.
All right. So again, this is Iraq. I had a dream, and it was one of those dreams that goes on for a long time. We're talking like the dream went on for 5 or 6 years. And
what do you mean 5 or 6 years in the dream, or just dream. Felt like it went?
In the dream, it went on. It went on for 5 or 6 years, and. I had a couple of my soldiers contact me, and this is after in the dream, I went to Iraq, I came back, and then I had some soldiers contact me in regards to, having unexplained illnesses. And in the dream, it all revolved around basically a whole bunch of scrap tanks that had barbed wire around them. And these guys were fucking around in there, and then, they come back, and as the dream went on, they got sick. Well, we landed in Baghdad, and I remember we got in our initial convoy to go to Abu, and we rolled right by this huge area of destroyed tanks from the first Gulf War. And they had barbed wire around them, and there were signs, like, in 3 different languages, don't fucking go in there. So I'm like, okay, I need to keep my people out of there because this is horseshit. Somebody's going to get fucked up. And sure as shit, like 3 or 4 months later, I'm staging to leave. Was it Baghdad to go to Abu? And I look over, and, I get in line, and we have four vehicles are from my unit, and there's the rest of them are for other units going to the same place. And I see 3 knuckleheads, walk over to the fucking tanks, and then they start fucking with their triple concertina barbed wire. And I get out, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Get the fuck away from there. Can't you read the goddamn sign? And they're like, oh, and they go back in. And I'm like, you know what? I think I just saved those 3 dudes' lives. Because a lot of people fucked around in there and got sick as shit. So I think it's depleted uranium or something, or I don't know what was going on there, but that was like a premonition type dream I had. So it is what it is.
So you avoided doing that?
No,
Or
I literally told those 3 guys, I caught them before they went in to where the tanks were.
But that was all in the dream. You didn't actually see that in real life.
No, well, in the dream, I saw them go in there and fuck around.
Okay.
And as the dream progressed, they got fucking sick.
You saw the 7-year forward. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So in the real world, I'm like, oh, this is 3 guys. And then I had that deja vu moment. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
Yeah. So you saw this lucidly in the dream. So you saw it clearly, everything.
Yes.
You had all that information.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So is that the only time that's happened, or have you had other experiences like that?
When I was younger, I used to have similar things happen all the time. It just seemed to happen less and less as I got older.
Okay. And okay, so think back to that experience. So was there anything in that dream where you were standing right where the barbed wire was? Was there a light source? What time of day was it? Was there a river nearby?
No, it was middle of Iraq. Well, there were some come to think of it, I mean, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's a lot of water, but there was drainage ditches and water, because the water table in Iraq is quite high. So I would say there probably was water there.
So Euphrates River?
It wasn't near that, but I'm just saying, like, when you go into Iraq, you land at Baghdad, you look out into the horizon, it looks really green, but it's really not. But there is a lot of water, and that's the only thing that was there. There wasn't any lights on. It was the middle of the day.
Okay.
And
but was there like a power source nearby?
Not really.
Okay, so you weren't over like electrical lines or anything like that?
No.
But emotionally, like with the first time in the dream, were you like emotionally you felt the upset that happened 7 years in the future?
Yeah.
From that point in the dream, and that pissed you off. You had that emotional incident that happened way in the future, that probably got sent back.
Yep.
And so that's what you were feeling, and that's kind of, so I think emotions are kind of a way to unlock future potential timelines. I think that's kind of what it's about.
Okay. All I know is I'm just sitting there doing my thing, and then I see these 3 knuckleheads, and then I had the little flashback from the deja vu. And I'm like, oh, no. No. Get the fuck out of there. You're going to fuck yourself up. No.
Look, I saved my brother's life doing this. So I dreamt that he was going to die. So in the dream, he's lying there in a coffin, and I'm looking down at the coffin. And then there's another version of him standing next to me, telling me, that's me. I'm going to die from swine flu.
Wow.
And I got that information, and I knew where I was when I heard that and all this kind of stuff. So when I heard that he was sick, I was in the exact same spot in the dream where I heard he was sick. So I went to go see him, and he wasn't doing well. Like, he just like fainted, collapsed. And I was like, he's like, I'm going back to bed. I'm going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm calling an ambulance. So I called an ambulance, and his blood pressure was down to like, I don't know, like 50 something over something else. He would have gone into a coma, and that would have been it.
Yeah. He was going septic. So
they put, I think, 6 or 7 IV bags they pumped into him to keep his blood pressure up.
Yeah.
And saved his life. And the next day that he went to the hospital, and the next day they're like, did they find out what it was? And they're like, swine flu. Right?
Uh-huh.
So what's really weird is, so there's this dead version of him that's floating around in the dreams, and this dead version keeps coming back to me once in a while, giving me warnings. So about a year and a half ago, I was filming a video in somebody's driveway. It was during COVID, and we weren't filming indoors. Uh-huh. So I set up a green screen right in front of her garage door, and all of a sudden, the night before, I'm dreaming about this like animal, and it's this like grayish black animal, and it fell over, and I don't know if it was dead. I was like, this is really weird. Like, this animal's just lying there. And in the dream, like, my brother was pointing at the animal, like trying to warn me about the animal. Right. So I set up the green screen. We're shooting the video. All of a sudden, this raccoon just starts coming up to me, just like randomly starts walking up to me. And I'm like, this raccoon is, a little too friendly. These animals usually don't do this. So, the first thing I can think of is, there's some kids there. I'm like, put the kids between you and the raccoon. That way, if anything happens, really. Anyway, I know it's not the most positive of experiences, but I just kind of like, ducked around, and I was like, and I told him, like, you guys got to get out of here too, right? Like this animal's not acting correct, right? So then the animal kind of walked over and just fell over, and then it looked exactly like the animal in the dream that was just lying there on its side. So I don't know if it was rabies or if it was something else, but this thing looked like it was ready to bite me, so I had to get the hell out of there.
Yeah, you don't want to get no rabies, bro. That
No.
shit's almost always fatal.
Yeah. So there's the thing, like, how am I getting a warning from this dead brother who's still kind of floating around? So I don't know if it's like parallel, like consciousness or parallel universe, or like how, where is this all coming from?
Yeah. Well, when you look, there's a lot of theories out there for the infinite universe model. So that's weird.
Is it just like one is fully actualized and then that's the only one, or are there parallel ones? Like, we don't know, right? Like there's
no
too many.
So
What's really interesting is like Philip K. Dick had these experiences too. Like, he saved his son's life. He found out that his son was going to die from hernia. And when his son got sick, he went and told the doctors about the hernia, and they didn't even know he had that problem. They're like, we're not going to check that. He's like, just check it. And they checked and they found it.
Yep.
And they saved his life. So, and he talked about this, he talked about how, we're in a computer generated dream world. A lot of his books are based off of alternate realities and timelines that he saw.
Okay.
So, there's actually a talk that he did in the 70s. If you ever have a chance to go online, he talks about how we're in the Matrix. We're in a computer generated world, the Matrix, right? And so it's like, what is this guy like? So the Matrix idea was taken, Wachowski brothers or Wachowski siblings or whatever you want to call them, took his idea from the 70s, and then they just kind of renamed it and reworked it into their film, which is kind of neat.
Well, that's cool. I mean, they're good writers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, but what I'm saying is like so if Philip K. Dick was seeing this, he saw the reality where the Nazis won, he saw reality where, freedom of speech was taken away, and all this kind of stuff. So, these things are all possible, but we don't have any, concrete ways. Like, for example, you had the dream with those three guys with the barbed wire. Now, if there was some way that you could, like, fully take that information and, like, make it usable and make it, repeat, like, so make the process work. And so you actually know the day. So, for example, I thought, like, if I'm going to have an experience and I'm going to see the future and it's going to happen on a specific day, if I do a rotating desktop background that changes a picture every single day into another picture, then the day I have that experience, if that light is near me and it's a precognitive experience, then I'll be able to time the day and I'll know which day ahead of time that experience will happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, have you actually come across, do you have any of your own ghost stories or anything?
I haven't had any ghost stories. The only one I had, like, I heard a friend that I trust really, he's basically told me that, he was by the Old Mill River, in western part of Toronto. And then he saw this, like, screaming woman pushing a baby carriage, like just pushing it down by the river and, like, disappearing into oblivion. And it freaked him out. Like, he completely, like, was not happy about that. But I haven't had any ghost experiences. No.
All right. So stand by. All right. So I got one here, and this is a ghost story, and it came out of the mouth of an individual who survived the Holocaust and World War II. And the reason I knew this guy is this. When I was a child, I lived in Oak Park, Michigan, right off Coolidge between 8 Mile and 9 Mile. The area was heavily populated with Jewish people. All right. I have nothing against Jewish people. A lot of them, I have a lot of friends that are Jewish growing up. And this guy, he lived 6-7 houses down from me. And I used to mow his grass for like $2 or $4 or something. once a week or once every week. Great guy. And he was old at this time, and I heard that he died in like 1985, long after I moved out of the neighborhood. But they used to call him Tolly, and he was at that time he was no longer a rabbi, but he was, he'd been a rabbi in the past, and he was doing something else, and he was basically going to retire. Guy was old as dirt. And the way it was explained to me is him and his older brother got moved to a camp. It was a labor camp called Nevengami. I never heard of it. Nevengame. I had to go look it up because I remember the name, but I didn't until I saw it. And it was one of the sub camps. And he was 16 years old. That's why he said that he survived, because he was so young, and young people are indestructible. So he was like 15, 16 when he got put in there, and his brother was like 22, 23-ish, 7 years older than him, something like that. Well, they both went to this one camp, 1942. Winter. Older brother gets gangrene. From frostbite. It happens. But the way this guy explained it to me and listen, this is an elderly man talking to a 10, 11-year-old kid. So I'm remembering this story across this vast span of time. So it gets a little dicey. So you got to bear with me. And the way he explained it, where the guards could literally kill you for whatever reason, without anyone really asking any questions. So what they would do, and to get rid, they used to call them the useless eaters, is if you were lame or hurt, and the guard saw it, they either shot you in the morning, or they executed you at night. That's just the way he explained it to me. It sounds terrible. So his brother got executed in the evening, coming back from where they were doing their work. I don't know if he was working in the brick factory or working at the lumber yard. I'm not sure. And crushed him. And then he goes on when he explained to me, he goes, well, my brother was physically dead, but he's been with me my entire life. And the way he explained it was this. He'd been married once before. His mother died, or his wife had died of a brain aneurysm. And he was coming back from the hospital. She had just died. You got to bear with me. This is a really sad one. He's driving down the street. And as he's pulling the driveway, he sees his brother and his wife on the goddamn porch. Just for a few seconds, and then they were gone. And he's like, it was literally like somebody reached into me and like just turned the grief down in 50%, because he knew his brother, his dead brother, came and collected his now dead wife. And it literally, like, you could see it in his eyes when he would tell you the story. I was like, oh my God, it's making me sad now, because I understand what all that loss feels like. But as a 10 or 11-year-old child, it was just kind of, I knew it was a bad thing, but there was no emotion attached to it, because I really hadn't experienced a lot of people dying at 10. So
yeah, I've had, in terms of, I haven't had the ghost experiences, but I've had strange things surrounding death. So the first time something weird happened was, I was dating this chick. I was about 25. The relationship was getting close to the end. And the last time I saw her grandmother before she passed away, the grandmother just started breaking down and crying, and like she wouldn't let me leave the house. Like it was just this weird experience. And everyone was like, Grandma, what the hell is going on? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and so they couldn't, like, I couldn't figure out why she was acting like this. Nobody could. She was crying. She was like, you can't go. And I'm like, I don't know. Why was she acting like that? And a week and a half later, she's dead. Right? She just suddenly died. But she wasn't doing that to anybody else. She was only doing that to me. right? And I don't know if it was like the pain that it took me a long time to recover after that relationship, and like 3, maybe 4 years to fully recover. Like it took so maybe she was trying to like console me for that. I don't know. Like maybe she was just trying to pass on the message that death is not, like the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's just a lot of kind of weird things like that. Every time. So when she died, when she was buried, all of a sudden I'm looking up and I look up at the clouds, and there's just like the cloud area parts, and there's just like this ray of light just like strikes the area where we're at in the cemetery. Right. And nobody's noticing this. This is another thing I noticed. Like whenever I go to a funeral, I notice things that other people aren't necessarily seeing.
Yeah.
Like, so usually it's a cloudy day at most funeral days that I go to. And then when the actual burial is happening, the clouds seem to open up. Right. And I'm like, why does that happen? I don't know. It's just really weird.
Yeah.
And even my father mentioned this a few times. And then, so every time I go to a funeral, I pay close attention to the weather and the lighting. And then I noticed these patterns over and over again. Like, for example, there was this other funeral. The guy, he didn't want to have I think he was just cremated, but he had like a wake, and it was in this giant theater. And he had three kids, and he really liked 2 of them, but he didn't like the third one. And so when the 2 kids that were speaking, the kids that he liked, the light would actually shine through the windows and then the moment the kids would stop speaking, the light would shut off from the outside, right? And then when the kid went up he didn't like, there was no light, right? So you're like, what the fuck? And I pointed it out to a few people, and they're like, what's going to happen with the next person? And they're like, oh, the light's on him, the light's off of that person. Oh, now it's coming back. It's like, what is this? Like,
here's another addition to that Tolley story, right? So I was in high school when he passed away. I believe I was a junior. And I remember going, to his service, and his kids were there. His daughter was, I don't know, she was probably in her 40s-ish at that time. And she gave up, and she was talking about her father, and she went on to explain why she wasn't really totally distraught. It's because like a couple days before he died, his daughter was there, his extended family was there, and he was like totally cool with it because he'd seen his brother standing next to him at his bed, and he knew that when his time came, his brother was going to take him the other side.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Whew, that was a good one.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you could actually have a good relationship with, here's my thing. Like, it's not the dead that, like, his brother is dead and he's coming to get him, right? So there's just this linear idea that you die and then you become this spirit thing, right?
Yep.
But you die in the future, and as a spirit, you might be able to travel back into the past.
Who knows?
So you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Who knows what can happen?
Well, no, but like it's weird because I get information from people who are going to pass away one day, but they go back into the past and they tell me things, and I'm like, how does that work? They're still alive, but they're a ghost at that future point, and that's where they're telling me the information. It's really bizarre. Here's another one. So when my grandmother passed away, my mother went to the funeral, and she said there was this little bird, and it was just like hanging around everybody. It was walking on the ground and between everybody, and nobody could figure out what's going on with this bird. Like it was just like walking in between everybody. And so I didn't think too much of this. And then a few years later, I found this video where this woman said that when she dies, she's going to come back as a red cardinal, and she was going to take over the red cardinal's like consciousness and come and visit her daughters. So there's this video of these two.
I've seen that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you're talking about the dead, they might actually be able to control simple biological organisms.
Yeah, maybe. Never thought of that, but
well, how do you explain that bird? Like, people will say, "Oh, that's just a coincidence." It's like, yeah, the bird is just will not let go. The bird is just like stuck on them.
Yep, and there's a couple. I saw another story about the guy whose daughter passed away, and after she passed away, he literally always had butterflies around him, and he knew he's like, that's my daughter visiting me. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of weird animals and things, like I've had weird experiences with like crows and ravens in the Southwest. Like they would just follow me, land on my car in like large groups, and they were warning me not to go someplace. And I listened to the warning, and then the moment I did, and I decided to change my travel itinerary, they didn't follow me anymore.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, here's another story, you guys. I told this one to the supporters out there, so I'm going to apologize to you if you've already heard this. I'm going to tell it again because there's a lot of people here who haven't heard this one. All right, now this individual in 1982 worked at Walter Reed Army Hospital. He was an X-ray tech, and his job was to run the X-ray machines and run all of the equipment that needed to be done. He was lower on the totem pole. He only did one enlistment. So, he'd been there for about a year. Nothing really happened. It was just, you go in, you do your shift, you leave. And he would work afternoon and night shift because they always had to have somebody, working the equipment 24/7, 365. Well, on the floor he's on, and this is one of the older buildings at Walter Reed. I mean, when I was there, I've actually seen these buildings. They're probably gone now, but they did not look good. They were run down as shit. And they started upgrading. So they tore down walls. They were redoing electrical because the building used to have knob and tube, which is fucking incredibly unreliable and dangerous. And it had... they're putting in copper piping. So, like, there are areas on the floor where, like, it's ripped down to the studs or ripped all the way down. And it's... So once that started happening, he started noticing a lot of things on the list, like the lower level shit here. A lot of murmurings, a shadow here and there. He would set things down to have them disappear, but he would find them 1 or 2 days later somewhere else, or they just would never show up. And he thought it was fairly odd because he worked, this would happen at the night shift that would go to like 6 in the morning. There's nobody there. And things would just disappear. And let me go through this. All right. So we talked about the muffled voices, losing small objects, blah, blah, pens and pencils. All right. He goes on to explain towards the end, and when he finally left, he would set things down, like literally, he would set it down, turn around, come back, gone. That happened. It started getting a little crazier. He finished up his enlistment, and then later on, went on to become a physician assistant. And in the story, he says between 1983 and 84 to when he retired in 2018, he had worked at 6 hospitals, major hospitals around the D.C. area and New York, New Jersey. All of them were haunted, without exception. And, I'd probably send this guy an email, see if he has any other stories, but I thought that was a pretty good one. And the thing is like another common thread in like the lower level hauntings is everything could be fine until you start changing shit in the environment. And then it like wakens people up to keep doing their craziness. I don't know. I don't know. I thought that one was pretty fascinating.
What do you mean, like a renovation?
Yeah. Yeah. They were renovating it. They were putting in copper pipes and redoing the electrical, and they were tearing down like whole areas. They're ripping down to the studs or sometimes tearing down the walls. And it literally, I don't know, you could say it awoke in the building maybe. I don't know. So.
Well, I think in terms of waking up buildings, I don't know if you've had any past life things before, or have you had any of those?
Yeah.
So have you figured out who you were in the past life? Did you visit that place? Did you get any information that you could only get from that person?
Well, okay. I did not actually get a name of the person I think I might have been. It all revolves around Port Townsend, Washington State. I went there with a buddy of mine, his wife, and like one of her friends. It was a setup thing. Worked out pretty good. But literally, we get out of the car, and we start, doing the tour of, the fort. And I had fucking been there before. Like, I knew what certain rooms were before they would say it. I could envision myself, walking guard along the row of cannons that were there. Because back in the day, we didn't like Canada, and we had that fort there to protect the Puget Sound from the Canadians. But that was weird, and like literally, I knew I had been either a sailor or a soldier at that post at some point in the past. And I knew all. I mean, it was weird. It was literally like I had read the script, and then walked on to the area, and I knew everything that was there. It was very surreal.
Okay, so yeah, if you had information on that person, what I noticed is there's actually a gap between every single previous incarnation of 35 years for me. And the weird thing is the last two incarnations, they lived on the exact same property on Long Island.
Wow.
Yeah. So if people can do some research and find who those characters were. But one of them was William Floyd, one of the founding fathers of the United States, but he's like not really known all that much. And so what happened with him was he had this giant property down there, and he had all these slaves. So when I visited the property back about maybe 10, 15 years ago now, I went upstairs in the house, and I was the only person on the tour. A lot of the founding fathers, they still keep the historic houses, intact, but nobody usually goes to these places. So I go in there, and the tour guide, I'm just walking around with her. She asked me, "Do you know what that is?" And I'm like, she's pointing behind me, and I haven't even turned around, and I don't even know what it is. And I'm like, "It's a scope." And she's like, "But you haven't even looked at it." It's like, "It's a scope." And she's like, "Do you know what it's used for?" I'm like, "To look at the slaves through the window." It's like, right? Uh-huh. So, and then a few days later, I went down to Independence Hall in Philadelphia, and I wanted to identify the seat where William Floyd would have been sitting in. And you're in this room, and there's about 60, 70 seats, and I'm like, that chair right there. And then I asked the tour people, like, where did the representatives from New York State sit? And they're like, right there. It's like, shit.
There you go. Right? Yeah. Listen, when I was a kid, I had deja vu like every other day, up until like 9th or 10th grade in high school. And then I used to have a recurring dream that I literally had from like the age of 4 until like 7 or 8th grade. And in that dream, I die. And I see myself die, and I could feel myself die. And the way it always started is I'm on the edge of town. There's people on the left and right of me walking me to the gallows to get hung. I go up there, I fight, I scream. It's a very fucking horrible thing. They put the rope on. I don't even get the hood. I feel the forceful chiropractic happening. And then, I actually float out of my body, and I wake up. And I had this dream all the time, and it literally bothered me to no end. And I tried the lucid dreaming as a kid. I had a really hard time controlling it for a while. And then it went on, and every time the dream would start, I'd always be farther back from the town. And there'd be more people on the left and right, and there's usually people I had met in the recent time. To the point where I'm walking like maybe half a mile or a mile to the gallows, and it's people I know I've met along each side. And the last time I had it, I remember I hear the off-key electric guitar music. There's, it's black and white. I can see like heat lightning out in the distance, and I know I'm getting hung. So like literally, I'm like, I got this. I'm like, don't touch me. I'm good. And I willingly walk down there, walk up the stairs, you know, on the gallows. And I remember there's a dude with the top hat there, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Yeah. And I grabbed the rope, put it under my right under the right ear, and I look over and I go, do it. And they fucking pull the thing. I fall through, same thing. I die. I float away. Never had the dream again after that. It's like once I accepted it, it stopped.
Well, you were being given a message, right? And you just weren't accepting the message.
I have no idea. I have no idea what that message was, other than maybe I was a bad guy in a past life. I don't know. But I thought it was pretty interesting. And,
well, there's the theory that, if we're in a simulation, then there might only be so many of us that are conscious, right?
Could be.
So if we're having these experiences, we're like rebooting and then we're re-interacting with one another. And, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of validity to that, because whenever I would travel, I would overwhelm, like, if you play a video game, they have like zones. Like if you play World of Warcraft and you go from one area to another, and sometimes the zone takes time to load, right? Mm-hmm. So the computer will kind of lag and have to wait until that area loads. So if you're in current reality, and if it takes time to load between one part of like one geography and another, then that's going to cause the computer to have to work really hard.
It's a lag.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Like if instead of the lag actually happening, maybe the dream world is where we boot up those things. So that way you can keep the seamlessness of the reality going. Right.
Maybe.
So, like that's why we have our off time, because, the next day it has to get like preloaded and all the timelines kind of have to connect.
Yeah.
It's a theory, right? It's
theory.
just, it's one of those things.
All right. Well, man, I'm going to be hitting super chats here. So if you want to stay on, go ahead.
I just wanted to share one last story and then take off. So
okay,
just
what is
wanted
it?
You got like 5-10 minutes?
I sure do.
All right. So this is the weirdest one. And a couple people in the chat actually recommended I talk about this. So I'm in this dream. I'm sleeping with this chick. She's in her early to mid 20s. I remember her chest being almost completely flat. I'm like, I don't like girls that have no, tatas. Like, what's going on here? But anyway, so I'm lying there in bed with her, and she's like, there's something off about you. Like, like you're acting kind of odd. And I go, well, that's because I'm not really me. I'm actually an entity that travels between host to host, and I fix events that happen in the person's life in bad ways, kind of like Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap, but not just one event, multiple events in a lifetime, right? So I'm watching. So there's the guy, he's sleeping with her, and then there's this character who's kind of quantum leaping into the character, and then I'm watching this from his perspective. So I'm kind of hijacking someone who's already hijacking that consciousness, right? So, and then she says, "Thank you for telling me like the truth." Then all of a sudden her accent changes, so it becomes like an English accent, and she starts telling me, she's like, "Thank you for telling me. My name is Anne Christie. Look me up. Not Agatha Christie, but Anne Christie, and I'm an author." Right?
Okay.
So I wake up and I'm like, over my computer, I'm like, Anne Christie, and then the first thing pops up, Agatha Christie. I'm like, fuck. Because she knew. It's like she knew the search was going to lead me to Agatha Christie. So anyway, I start looking her up, and this, in the dream, I got the idea that it was either 1961 or 1963. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I see the dream. So I find this person, and now she's in her like late 70s, early 80s. And then I go and I find pictures of her before, and she's the exact same person I just had the dream of, like, half an hour before when I woke up, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy, right? So I contact her on I contact her on a website. I try to order a painting because she paints.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I made a fake name, and I'm just like I'm like, is this person alive? Like, and then I finally found an Instagram page, and like I tried to add her as a friend. She wouldn't contact me. She wouldn't respond at all. I was trying to buy pictures. I was trying to like just do any kind of contact wouldn't work. I added her on Instagram.
Uh-huh.
I thought nothing would happen, so she added me on Instagram, and that's about the most that happened. But it's a weird story.
All right, that's cool. I like that one. And you know
But
what?
she writes books on psychic phenomenon.
Okay.
So there's definitely a connection there. But the idea that there might be entities out there that go and do quantum leaps, and that they don't just change one event in your life, but they change many events in your life, is kind of interesting.
I agree. That is kind of interesting. All right, there, Sandman. I'm going to hit some super chats here, and I appreciate your time. I really do.
All right. So am I out of here, or
No,
want me
you
to kind
can
of
hang
pipe
out
in
in
with
the
them?
back. It's fine. It's no big deal. I'm just going through some super chats here. And we got here from Seth Rich, Canadian, $10. Thank you. Crazy Horse had a dream of being betrayed and killed years before it happened. Yep. There's always some asshole out there doing shit like that. Betrayal is very common of human beings. Let's see if we got anything else on here. All right, I saw a few more on here. Well, maybe they dropped off. All right. Let's see. Let's go to. We got one here on Mungo Harry, $20 on MGTOW. Happy Halloween, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, we had 3 or 4 on Facebook or on YouTube. I have no idea what happened to them. They dropped off. So let's see what we got going on here. All right. Let's go to Odyssey here. Hang on. All right. Okay. Odyssey is not working out so well. We got $5 from K-Camera and $1 from Jackal the Emperor. I can't see if there was comments attached to those. I can't see them at this time. I apologize. Yeah, Blake is way better at the super chat thing than I am. Let's see what we got here. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. All right. Let's go to the email.
While you're looking, I can share a quick story with
Sure.
Elon Musk that just happened today. It was hilarious. He showed up at the Twitter headquarters and he brought a sink with him, like a literal sink. And he said, "I'm here. Let that sink in." It was just the cheesiest friggin' joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I was watching that today. Tim Pool covered it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim Pool covers this stuff pretty good. Okay. Let's see. I got several paranormal stories that are quite large, and I'm probably going to have to, do a separate video to cover those because they're so big. I mean, we're talking like one's 3 pages, one's a page and a half. So I can't really dig into that so much. So.
See, what's important is if we can take these stories and kind of write them down and have like a book of them, because we're making videos, so they're going to survive in some form or another, but hopefully.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I have enough. I could actually probably write a book of ghost stories.
Well,
I mean,
the crazy thing is if you don't write them down, you're going to forget them at some point, right?
You're right. And you know what? I mean, I've already written books, so it's not like I don't know how to do that. I mean, okay. I got like maybe 70 or 80, really good ghost stories that are floating around in my thinking meat. And I used to write them down a long time ago when I used to journal. I just got to find that and see if I can. Yeah, I could easily do and I could make it like military themed. I think that would be cool. So, all right. So that's all I got right now. I don't know what's going on with the super chats. It's not my strong suit. This is the first time I use this equipment. I'm going to have to
Oh, somebody's saying, Big Chad, the mad lad, says, in dreams, I see some people's deaths a day or two before they die. It happens even if I never met them before.
Really?
Been happening since I was 10.
My aunt has that. Like my mother's sister.
Okay.
When somebody in the family is either going to die or they're on death's door, she'll usually know of it about a week ahead of time because she'll have a dream. And there's usually some kind of dividing line. And then like when she saw when my grandfather died, like she was in this big field, and then on one side was all of the relatives that, you know, she had met some of them in her lifetime, but some of them were extended family she had never met. And, you know, and they're like, yeah, well, Bill's going to be here really soon. She goes, what? Bill can't be here. You know, he's still alive. And they're like, oh, yeah. And, like literally 7 days later, my grandfather expires.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened all the time. Let's see what we got going on. I got a few. All right. So I promised everyone when we first started, when I talked about the board behind me here, and I went through the 3 levels of hauntings. I talked about the good ones, the bad ones, residual, intelligent, and the areas right here. And I told them I'd talk about some ghost stories from when I first moved to Berkeley, like the end of 7th grade. And like we move into the house, it's an older house. It was really in a state of severe disrepair. There was an older woman who had passed away at the hospital who had lived there. And apparently it was a lesbian couple, had lived in the house for decades. And one of the ladies died in the house. And then the other one lived in the house for another 8 years. And then she died in the hospital nearby. And anyway, you know, my mother, you know, cut up all the carpeting. We're stripping the floors. We're painting. We're doing the whole deal. And, you know, I was a young kid. My uncle was there. He's an asshole, but that's another story. And so we get the house livable. We move in, and things start happening. At first, they're very mild. Like, you'd come down in the morning, and like the cupboards in the kitchen would be open. Nothing would be smashed. They'd just be open. That's, you know, I got yelled at a few times for that by my mother, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And about a year after that, it's about sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning, I'm upstairs, sleeping in my room, and I got my dog with me. And I hear like something fall and break downstairs. You know, like my mother wakes up, she comes to my door, and she's like all hysterical. Somebody's downstairs. Ah! So I'm like, okay, I go down there with a baseball bat. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not that old. I mean, it's not like I can do anything, but I'm the man of the house, and that's the way it rolls. And I go down there in the kitchen. There is one of those heavy glass tops that goes on one of those pedestals you put a cake on. And it sits up about 6 or 7 inches, and it fits in there. And the top, like the glass part, goes into a groove that's in the glass below it, so making it like semi-airtight. And then the base was on the top of the refrigerator, all the way against the wall. And then in front of it, there was like napkins and paper towel. So somehow in the middle of the night, the top was lifted out of the groove, moved 2.5 feet, and then dropped on the floor. That's the only way that could have happened. And that one, you know, was nutty. And the one that really freaked me out the most, and my mother, for a hot second after this, was actually contemplating selling the house and moving somewhere else. And this, in my opinion, was a direct attack against my sister, my younger sister. Now, the way it started is she used to like to sit in this one chair, and it was a leather armchair, and we had it for years. You know, I literally laid in that thing myself hundreds of times. It was just a padded leather chair. And I remember I'm on the floor watching TV. My mom's on the couch behind me. And all of a sudden, my sister jumps off the chair, covered in blood, screaming her lungs out. And like my mother and I run up there, we're trying to figure out where she's bleeding from. And like behind on her tricep, there was a perfect puncture hole that bled profusely for about 20 minutes. Like, I mean, it took like direct pressure. It was insane. My mother was way upset and freaking out. And literally she's like, okay, you know, we got her cleaned up, you know, and we, you know, the dining room was like right to our left and we're working on her. And I notice like the light is kind of shifting around. I look over and the chandelier in the dining room is moving about 8 inches side to side. So I'm like, okay. So I searched that chair top to bottom. I found nothing that possibly could have punctured her and caused that kind of bleeding. And she was like 8. All right. And she was just sitting there. It was totally unexplainable. So, you know, and that instance was the only time where we had the highest level of, you know, paranormal haunting activity, you know, i.e., you know, harmful touching, in my opinion. And that royally just, my mother was literally like, I remember talking, you know, hearing my mom talk to her sister on the phone, actually contemplating, you know, selling the house and doing other things. I thought that was pretty good.
You know what's really interesting? You get, like, we have tons of experiences, and then I talk to some people and they have zero. Like, how does that happen statistically?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm sensitive to it, to be honest. I always have been. I just not, you know, I'm not one of those uber psychics that walks in and could tell you everything about your life. Or anything. I just get feelings. And I think we all have those. It's just for whatever reason, you know, from a very young age, I just paid attention to them more.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, everything kind of activated when I took some lorazepam to calm down. I went to this panic state. Mm-hmm. And then I took just one pill. It knocked me out for almost like 18, 19 hours. Yeah. I woke up, and then all of a sudden I could see precognitive things in dreams from that point on. It was really weird. That's the stuff that Jordan Peterson was stuck on for years. So,
oh, yeah, yeah. I've taken that stuff before. I didn't have anything like that happen.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the person, right? How they react with the drug.
Yeah. And here's the last story for the evening before we shut this down. All right. Now, I bought another house in the same city of Berkeley because the house that I lived in when I was going to high school, my mother had lost it, got foreclosed on. Long story, not going to go into it. Bought another house. Now, it just turns out that this new house was built in like 1905, and it had 3 different upgrades done to it over the years. And that house was a farmhouse, and there was a huge apple orchard and pear tree orchard connected to the property. It was, you know, pretty big. Now, I'm not the only one who's seen this apparition. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times since I've owned the house. My mother has seen it, and my nephews have seen it. And I believe one of my daughters saw it, you know, out of the corner of her eye just once. But it's a dude wearing a straw hat walking around my property. Like, the first time I saw him, I literally was in the house 4 months. And I'm watching TV, and there's a side window to my right, and from watching TV, you could just catch it out of your peripheral vision. And somebody walks right by the window. I'm like, what the fuck? I get up. I'm like, what? So there's like 8 inches of snow on the ground. And then you look through the dining room. There's 3 more windows right there, but there's like a very, very thin white curtain there. So you can see through it, but people can't see in. Plain as day, I see the dude walk by the 3 windows. And I'm like, well, I'm assuming that maybe it's the meter reader. I don't know, because on that side of the house is the gas meter and the water heater, or water meter. I go to the back door, open it up, and there are no footprints in the snow. Nada. That really wigged me out. And I've throughout the years, I've seen glimpses of them go by windows. Only on one other time did I see him for a split instance when it was in the summer. We were barbecuing out back. I turned everything up. We were eating in the house. It got dark. My mom, she's like, "Hey, it's gonna rain. Go put the top on the barbecue." So I'm like, "Okay." I go out there, and I reach down, pick up the top of the barbecue, look up, and there's Mr. Straw Hat Man. Just for a second, just literally, I was like, and he was gone. And I was like, "Okay, take that as a hit." I locked the door, went to bed. But yeah, and the way I think, it is it's just a guy who was our farmer. He owned the house in the past. He managed the apple trees and the orchards, and he still, for whatever reason, he's still doing the job.
Or his energy.
Or it could be residual, in my opinion. I think it is residual, to be honest with you. But you never know. Let's see what we got here. All right, Sandman. I think we're going to pack it in today. We're at...
All right, sounds good.
What would we just cross over?
Don't cross over, please.
No. Yeah, all right. We're right at the 2-hour mark. All right.
Okay, I'm out of here. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Hey, thanks for calling in, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
And
all right, later.
All right, take it easy, man. All right. All right, so I'm on the YouTube chat here. Did anyone send a super chat in that I was not able to get to? Because I think there's 3 in here floating around somewhere that have disappeared. I don't know where they went to. All right, so hopefully you guys like the Paranormal Popp thing. Probably going to do more shows like this. And, because it's one of my passions. And, I'm retired or semi-retired, I guess. Might as well do something constructive with that extra time, I guess. I write books. I do comedy. I might as well do this. I'm already up to, 481 lives saved. I'm hoping to get to 500 soon. I think that would be huge. Saved from suicide. Here's one here. A super chat from Nick Corcodilis. Gilfs, because toothless girls give the best head. Okay. Well, normally if this is a Thought Thursday, and I would totally agree with you. Well, I still agree with you. I'm just saying. All right. Let's see what we got here. Anything new? No. All right. Let's go back to the live stream chat on YouTube. All right. So, if you're a supporter, I have been telling ghost stories pretty much every Sunday for the past 2 weeks. Probably going to do more on this Sunday. And I got some new ones in there that I haven't said before or spoken about before. And then I'm going to try to do a video in regards to the few ghost stories that we received that are on the longer side. One of the one of the other reasons why I think we should do it as its own show is, one, it's 3 pages long, and I'm not really the best reader on a computer screen, and I probably want to read the stories a couple times and then transcribe them by hand. That way, when I tell them, they're burned in here, and I don't have to keep looking at the notes and stuff. I think that would be more professional, in my opinion. All right. So we're going to give you the safety briefing. All right. We are now entering into very trying times. All right. So if you are not a fighter or somebody willing to draw a line in the sand, all right, you should probably figure out a way to either camouflage or conceal yourself from from the crazy people out there, because it's going to get to the point where they don't even really need an excuse to fuck you up, and you don't want to actually catch yourself, in that situation. Another thing, situational awareness. Typically, if somebody is going to attack you or do something nefarious to you, something in the environment will change. Keep your head on a swivel. Pay fucking attention. All right? All right, and don't drink and drive, and don't drink and swim. All right, if you're going to fight, do your best to not go to the ground, because that's where people die. If you have to defend yourself with a weapon, do so to basically shoot to kill, because it's always best if there's only one story, and it should be your story. All right? And I've had a couple premonitions in regards to what lies ahead of us for the next couple of years. Probably going to keep those to myself for right now, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And one of those premonitions was the use of a nuclear warhead somewhere on the planet. And I just saw a quick glimpse in the dream on the news. So who knows where that is. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Please send me your paranormal stories. I will do what I can to, keep doing Paranormal Popp shows like this. I'm learning the equipment, so chances are, I could probably get up to speed and do a lot of the streams myself without Blake present. Because, listen, that dude is busier than a one-armed well digger, and it is what it is. He's got to maintain a business. He's got to, take care of a family. Got it. So anyway, thank you for your time. Take it easy. And there we go.